Hi, this is Tasheena.
And this is Jonathan.
And this is We Watch What We Watch, where all we need is the air that we breathe. And to love you. The song in the movie?
Vaguely.
Oh my
this
gosh.
movie?
Yes, this movie.
Oh.
That's the song he plays in the very beginning.
Well, it's been like a week since we've seen this.
Oh, boy. I didn't think our memory was that far gone, though.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is.
We're already getting to that stage where we can't retain anything for too long. So, with that in mind, we saw Heretic.
Yes. Two young religious women are drawn into a game of cat and mouse in the house of a strange man.
Yes, we have our two leading ladies, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. They are on their Mormon mission, which, for those of you who don't know, Mormons usually right after high school for 2 years, they go pretty much wherever the church tells them to go, and they take their bikes and they go door to door. They spread the gospel.
Hand out pamphlets.
That's mostly what they're doing. There's probably other stuff around the church they're doing, but that's like their main goal for these 2 years. And you know, sometimes you go to Orlando and sometimes you go to butt-fuck nowhere. It really depends. Sister Barnes is played by Sophie Thatcher, which to all my Yellow Jackets fans out there, she was great. Did you not know that was the girl from
I was trying to place
Yellow
her.
Jackets?
Oh, yeah. What's her name?
Juliette Lewis's younger version.
Yeah.
I think her name is Nat. She has like the blondish hair.
Natalie.
Yes.
Yeah. I was trying to where have I seen her? And that answers that. What else has she been in?
Oh, she's been in a couple other minor roles. I recently saw her in Maxine. She had a minor role.
Okay.
But that's about it. I think Yellow Jackets and this are probably the big
Has Chloe
projects.
Eastman? What's Chloe's?
I looked and I don't recognize at least the movies she's been in. Maybe she's been in a show.
Ones. Looks like the biggest one.
So so Sister Paxton's played by Chloe East, which I don't recognize her, but she was great. I thought she played off of Sophia Thatcher really well.
Oh, Thatcher was also in Prospect.
Oh, yes. That's the other movie she's in.
And the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, didn't see that.
So actually, I must have, since I recognize her, I guess she's not a huge star.
No.
But she has been in more things than Chloe East has, it seems.
Yes.
But in my mind, I was...
recently she's been in a lot.
Yes.
She's getting the push right now.
She definitely had that more lead character energy.
Yes.
The way she was presented and the script and everything, which comes into play.
Yes, because she is more of the convert. Her mom was a late in life conversion to Mormonism. They didn't say how old she was when she converted, but, probably later kid, early teen. Where Chloe East's Sister Paxton, she is born and bred a Mormon. And you could tell, her mannerisms. She did a great job having, the keep sweet attitude.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they are in, dire situations, she's still thank you for your time.
Thank you for your mentorship.
I was dying in the theater with some of her lines because she
the pornography. Every time she said it, it's this awkward the pornography.
That beginning conversation. If people have never been in a fundy religion in your 20s, that is the level of awkwardness we are working with. I was already relating so hard to the situation with that conversation because I'm that's how super religious 20-somethings talk. That's the way they talk. Because I think we should also say, for background purposes, because it's going to play a lot to my thoughts on the movie, I, for a good decade of my life, was in a religion that was high control, fundamentalist. I was deep in it. And then for the past decade, I've been deconstructing. So I have a lot of thoughts on...
And it's similar. I guess I'd probably more on like the Paxton side where it grew up in the church. So yeah,
he was homeschooled.
Can definitely relate to.
She definitely had homeschool energy.
That's how I knew God is real.
That's how I knew God was real.
Watching the pornography.
So, they're going around doing their thing because they usually have a list. Like, they usually stop people. I've had Mormons stop me at gas stations and stuff like that. But that is like on the way to like people that have noted interest. And Mr. Reed, Hugh Grant, they're going to his house because somewhere along the way, I guess someone probably went up to him and he's like, oh yeah, I'm interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, I think he had reached out to them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is important.
Yes. So he was on their list. They go and meet him. And I feel like we can go into pretty much where they make the decision because I feel like a lot of that stuff was in the trailers. I think after that is probably the spoilers, I would say, section. But, they go in and they're first doing their thing, talking about the Book of Mormon and just little things Hugh Grant's doing is definitely making Sister Barnes nervous. She, I think, is a little bit more worldly.
She's more with it. She's more like she comes across as sharper, wittier, more able to see
the red
through
flags.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Yes. Where poor Sister Paxton is just like, this is great.
And I also think this is where Sister Paxton definitely comes across as sort of a vapid, sort of an airhead.
Yes.
But I think it is important to like be thinking about, is that all that's going on, or is that just the presentation she's putting on because of, decades of repression and this is how you're supposed to act?
She reminds me a lot of Christine Brown from Sister Wives, where she has like that very and like their voice gets higher too because they're taught that they have to have like always be happy and sweet, and so there's actually a very distinct, what's it called? I don't know, accent's the right word, but there's a certain inflection of the voice that's with Mormon women especially that are very deep in the religion, and I now can hear it like right off the bat. And I think Chloe East did a really good job of like pinning that down.
Because I think it helps a lot there's a turn that happens later, and it's very important if you're going to accept it or not. The only way to accept it is to recognize that just because someone has the appearance of someone who doesn't know what's going on doesn't mean that that's actually them, that there's not more buried under the surface that they're just repressing. Like, does she appear ignorant or oblivious to these things because she genuinely is oblivious and is not that smart? Or is it just that she doesn't want to think about them the way that Sister Barnes is more willing to think about them?
Yeah, she's probably more struggling on the surface. So they're having this beginning conversation in the room. They ask, like, where's your wife? And because he's like, oh, yeah, my wife's here. She's napping. Because when you go out, if there's somebody of the opposite sex, there has to also be someone of the same sex in the room. Yeah. Like, you cannot be alone with the opposite sex. Even though you are with a pair with each other, still, no go. There was no way they could enter that house if there was not a woman present.
And Hugh Grant is great here. Oh. And it was really good casting because you need someone who is very charming and very disarming.
Yes.
While still being able to make it believable that they also have this dark side to them. And he basically does that perfectly.
Especially in this beginning, back and forth. Because at first, he's very nice and kind to them and has a really easy air about him going back and forth.
And also then an awkwardness.
Yes.
That I think plays into their own awkwardness.
Yes.
So he sort of meets them at their level to make it more disarming.
And then all of a sudden he'll just this little turn and it gets a little darker. When they're going back and forth, like you could tell he knows his shit, especially about the Book of Mormon. So it's like, okay, why?
Yeah, he knows a lot more than he was letting on.
Yeah. So why did he ask for them to come and have more information when honestly he probably knows it more than they do? And then he brings up the very scary topic of polygamy, which is, if you don't know, that for your standard LDS, you don't talk about it. That was something in the past, like 100 years ago. We don't do that anymore. They hate talking about it. It's only the fundamental, like Latter-day Saints, that still practice polygamy. They actually split, I think, probably early in the 1900s. And so when he's like, well, what about polygamy and Joseph Smith? Like they both got super, I don't know, like the air got really sad. And she's like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, oh, this guy knows his stuff because he brought up direct revelation, which is what a huge tenet of the Mormon faith is that pretty much that's why they have all these freaking prophets, because they believe anybody could get the word of God. And it's pretty much, do you just have enough people to believe you? That's why there's tons of different branches of like the fundamental Mormonism, because they all have their own prophet. And so they say, I got direct revelation from God, and all you need is people to believe you. And then all of a sudden you're a prophet.
Yep.
And so he's like, did Joseph Smith use that to pretty much marry underage girls? Because if he's hearing from God, why wouldn't it apply now? He's like really, they
did a pretty good job, like, because she first breaks down like the church's argument for like, oh, it was, and I've heard this before.
Yes.
This was something that was needed then to grow, because we were persecuted and didn't have numbers. We needed to grow our numbers, but now it's not needed anymore.
Very common.
That's like argument. The line.
Yes. That's the mainstream line.
Yeah, and then he counters with, well, I think they used it to cover up his affair with his housemaid. And then just like, well, hey, if that worked, I could go further with this. And basically, he really like calls them out on like, this shit was made up to control people.
Yes.
Which is his whole thing, as it turns out.
Not gonna lie, I don't think anybody's been as hot as Hugh Grant, just like dropping knowledge right then. But then he becomes more of a smug asshole later on.
I think it shows that, like, well, for one thing, you can be right about some things and miss the point. You can also...
This is like half my notes, by the way.
I think it what really shows that someone can sound very smart by dropping lots of knowledge, and it's hard to combat that if you don't have the same level of study. Because they're referencing all these things, so they sound very smart, which makes you... I think a lot of the movie is about just like accepting what you hear just because someone sounds like they know what they're talking about, even if they genuinely do have knowledge that you do not and have some good points. That doesn't make everything they're saying automatically without reproach. Like,
oh yeah,
because they talk about basically, and this is what she tells Paxton later, is like, we can't let him steamroll us by dropping just this fire hose of facts. We have to challenge his conclusions.
Like, pretty much everybody's comparing him to like the subreddit atheism. But even before then, I remember like early 2000s when I was in my fundy heydays, like that's how I feel like especially atheist men talk to me. It was just a fire hose of information. Right. And so it wasn't actual dialogue. It wasn't them actually like trying to understand like why I believe this. It's like, well, you're just stupid. You're just dumb for believing this. And this is why you're dumb, ... And they could be 100% correct in everything they said, but because of the way they treated me, I wasn't going to listen. And that's kind of what I put here is, in big, huge letters, I put smug right next to Hugh Grant, or whose character is Mr. Reed. And I said, when you leave religion and never exit the anger phase. Because he talks about, it sounded like he was probably some form of Christianity. And then he realized, I don't think this is true. And then he went.
It sounded like he find like the one true
religion. And it sounded like he went on a journey. Like he went through every single religion he could to find the one true religion. And this is where we get in the trailer, like the choice for these two girls, because he's saying, I will show you what the one true religion is. And then they go into this creepy back room because they realize the house is locked down. Also, the house is built with metal. No calls are going out. Like it's a bad situation. But he keeps making it seem like, oh no, you can leave at any time. But yeah, everything else is like opposite.
It's all about manipulation and control, because he does all these things that
you can leave.
Technically give them ways out, but in a way that is obviously suspicious.
Yes.
And he does it basically intentionally to make them doubt themselves and their own conclusions based on their own societal norms and what's polite and what they believe, etc.
Because it's not, to him, the truth is control. But I think he is misogynistic. And just because you are not religious does not make you morally good. Because some people think that, like, who are atheists or agnostic, like, oh, well, there's so many, like, religious people think that they're good and moral. But just because you're religious doesn't mean you're good and moral. On the opposite end, just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean you are good either. Like, being religious or non-religious doesn't make you a good person. And just the way he treats these girls, like I'm gonna teach these young girls something. And we'll get more into spoilers, but like what he is doing down there, it's in his heart of hearts, he's a misogynist, but it's buried under all these, like, I'm morally right because I know the truth. But I think some of, like, his flaws, his own perceptions of people still come forth.
And also, I think it's telling, too, that you can try and make a misogynistic point about, look how easily I can manipulate these women, but you're doing it by taking advantage of the societal norms created by a male society that has put on them to accept what you are saying.
Yes.
So you're almost inversely disproving your own point by saying, well, look how easily I can manipulate these. Well, yeah, you can, because of the society that we live in and the fact that most women have been raised to accept these kinds of things, not because of their own.
Yeah, because the misogyny that's embedded into their religion with this keep sweet thing. Like, you see it over and over with Chloe East. Like, they're in dire situations, and she's still trying so hard to keep that attitude.
And especially in a chaotic and scary situation, you fall back on what you know and what gives you comfort, which is that. What's interesting with all these manipulations where his point is that he can control them and make them do what he wants, which to an extent he does. You know, one thing he says is, the doors are on a timer. Once they've locked, I can't unlock them. And he calls them out later too for saying, I told you that, my wife is over there, my wife is coming, but she never has. And at one point they ask again, like, so is your wife going to be like, do you really still believe that my wife is in the other room?
Yes.
Like, trying to prove that you've just been accepting what I've told you. Which is interesting. So he points out, you've just been accepting what I say is truth. At the same time, he told them, the doors can't unlock. I've trapped you here. The doors won't unlock. Not even I can unlock them, which is also a lie.
Yes.
So even after he has revealed that he's tricked them and trapped them there, they still accept that, even knowing his ill intentions, because, of course, later he goes and there's a hidden switch and he unlocks the door.
He unlocks the door, yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, that even the fact that they are imprisoned is not true.
It's all manipulation. Like, everything he's saying is manipulation to prove his point, which, before we go into Monopoly, is that kind of spoilers? Kind of like more like his plan, I guess. So Any, I guess, overall thoughts before we go into spoilers?
No, yeah, we can go to Monopoly.
Because I think it is worth seeing. I loved the first half. And when it gets to a certain point, it kind of churns a bit and then it starts going downhill for me.
Okay.
Because I could listen to him talk about Monopoly and not Creed, Radiohead for hours. And him singing his I'm a creep.
Yeah, that scene went on for a long time.
People did not like that scene, but I loved it.
And I think it's also the point that you're not supposed to like it. Like someone was talking about, he's a serial killer who Reddit arguments you to death.
Yeah.
Which is true. Yeah, he's making this case for, religion as versions of the Monopoly board game.
Because they're dumb girls. He has to break it down because they're dumb girls. Right, so it's this really
patronizing argument about here's what religion is. Which, as a movie, and here's the other thing, it's almost meta in a way, because if, as a viewer watching a movie, you are also accepting that what they are telling you is something smart and insightful, because that's usually what movies do. They have a big speech by someone where they break things down in a visual way, even if it's really dumbed down. You assume, that's for the audience. That's a very common thing. So he's doing this whole Monopoly explanation, which does have points in it that are fair. But it's still
don't disagree with some of these points, yes.
But it's still like this really patronizing, dumbed down, very oversimplified view of religion and what it is and how it can be based on these versions of Monopoly board game and how one was stolen from the other. And now this one, because it was just marketed better, is more popular. And you, as the audience, are also possibly sitting here just accepting this as, okay.
Oh, yeah.
But then in the movie themselves, she then calls them out on it later about like, this is wrong. This is way oversimplifying it.
Yep.
Because of all these things. And you realize that, oh, wait a minute, I fell into his trap of just accepting this argument at face value. And he is backed up by a lot of knowledge, which he has spent, it's not like he made up all this shit. He did
his research, yes.
A lifetime researching. But again, just because you have those facts doesn't mean you came to the right conclusion.
Correct.
And it's easy to be bombarded with these nuggets of truth. I really liked when you go, okay, this one's Judaism is, the original board game, and then Christianity is Monopoly, and then and the what was it? Hippie regional version. And he puts that Bob Ross Monopoly as Mormonism.
Yes. Like I said, the way it was done, like I understand why people are like annoyed by it. But I was just chuckling. I was laughing. I enjoy Hugh Grant, so
yeah,
I enjoyed it. But I was too. I was like, yeah, I'm down with it. But when he started peeling back his layers of like who he is, I'm like, oh, maybe not. Maybe
right.
Like I said, he's in the anger phase. So I think this is where we get to the two doors. So we're definitely, this is spoilers from here on out.
Right.
Go see it. Or don't. I don't care.
Yeah.
Or don't.
And that's the podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Well, I do have to say, no matter my feelings, the performances in this movie are really good. I do think there's some great themes. I just don't know if it got there for me.
Yeah, so
they have the two doors.
Yeah, this is a big thing about you must choose these two doors, belief and disbelief, whatever that means.
He's like, yeah, you can leave my house. You just have to exit through the back. But which door is it? And it's like, this guy.
And of course, what happens is they go down one, they pick the belief door, I think, and they go down it, and it leads to a room, and they never really put a lot of attention on this. When you look back, you see that both the doors led to the exact same place.
Which, I get it's the illusion of choice, blah, blah, blah. That did feel a little Reddit-y to me. The whole like, oh, like it doesn't matter, believe or disbelieve, the illusion of choice. I get the premise. And it does fit.
I think it more shows that it's the manipulation aspect, right? Yeah. He was never intending to give them a choice.
They were always going to that room.
He's trying to guide them to what he wants them to.
And
believe.
Get a little odd.
Yeah, things start getting weird here. So
with our prophetess.
Yeah, it brings down like this creepy lady who looks really gross and
like a contortionist in a way too.
Yeah,
She's
they're like, oh, this, and he's like, basically, this person's going to show you a miracle. They're going to die and come back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and he can hear what they're saying because there's like a little pipe thing that goes up to the other room, so he can hear what they're saying, which leads to later because they reveal what their plan is, and I'm like, don't they already know he can hear them? Like, I was a little confused.
I don't think he's talked to them by this point.
Okay,
because when they first get down there, they're like they're trying to get out, right? So they try some things. She takes a board out and it has some nails in it. Well, that was by accident. They knock a board off the roof and it falls in their nails. So they hide that. So Chekhov's board for later. And they come with a plan because she snuck out like a letter opener.
Yes, a letter opener.
From the study, and they say, okay, when we say, I'm going to give you a code word, magic underwear, and then you'll stab him. Because he's looking, because this is Sister Barnes saying it to Paxton, because he's like, he's watching me too closely.
Yes, they already know that.
Which is also kind of meta, because the audience is also watching her, because she has more of the leading lady, like, oh, she's the big name actress performance.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly she's going to be the one who makes it out and poor Paxton is going to die, is what going into this, especially with Paxton, she's had a rough time and you just feel so sorry for her. And I'm just like, oh man, she's going to die, isn't she? So I was kind of bummed about that. I'm like, okay, when's she going to die? And then Barnes is going to make it out and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, because I'm like, is this girl going to be able to stab Reed in the neck with a letter opener? Because she's like, you have to do it. You have to do it. And I'm like, Sister Paxton? Stab somebody in the neck? Like, even in this dire situation, I'm like, I don't know, girl.
But of course, so then later he starts talking through the pipes. So then it's like, oh no, he heard it, didn't he?
So I'm like, he knows. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, the prophet comes down.
Yeah, the prophet comes out.
Eats some pie.
Eats a gross pie. Which, of course, the reference from earlier, like
the blueberry pie. No, definite fuck you to them.
Yeah. And then dies.
And is this where the leader of the church comes?
Yeah, so...
This is how he gets distracted, right? When they...
Yeah, so then they've already told him that, someone from the church is going to come check in with us because we haven't checked in.
Which he must know because...
Which he must have known already.
Yes.
Because it seems to have been part of his plan, although I'm not sure when he'd know down to the minute that they'd
I don't know.
Come in.
That's why it's a little iffy. On some of the timing and his
because he has his little setup, his little miniature setup that shows the house.
Yeah.
And he has little figures, and he shows the figure of the guy walking up. So he clearly already knew. Maybe he didn't have to show up right at that minute. Maybe he just would let them sit there for a couple hours as he waited.
I mean, how many times have he done this? Maybe he has it kind of down to a science because he's done it a few times.
But if he's done it that many times, all with Mormons, all with this specific church that he has their own timing down there, I think they would have caught on.
They just have, because, if you don't know, especially in Utah, Mormons have like neighborhoods like color coded of like, you're this, you're that. Mr. Reed would just have a big old X.
I'm almost
don't
thinking
go there.
that, so spoiler alert, I'm almost thinking that his other victims were different faiths.
That's it. Yeah, that could have been.
One, just for practicality, again, if you just preyed on Mormons this whole time, they definitely catch on.
He just really hates Mormons.
Yeah. So I want to say that. And it would fit his whole thing if he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get one of everyone.
True. Which I'm like, man, how do you get a Buddhist?
Be manipulated. Maybe. So this is his Mormon manipulation segment. Anyway, so the guy from their mission shows up. He's and they've shown him before.
Topher Grace,
yeah. They've shown him leading up to this, like checking the other houses on their route, like asking around for them.
Mm-hmm. Because they never signed in.
Yeah. Which also seems really ineffective. They were like, oh, but he'll come and check on us. Like, yeah, well, all who granted to say is no, they're not here. What's he going to do?
And at the very beginning, when he was going to check on the pie, he was gone kind of a long time. It's because he went out back, got their bikes.
Yeah, because when they showed up, they chained their bikes That's been this whole thing too. Is because
the bike key. That's right.
I forgot. They showed up at the house. They chained their bikes. Barnes had the key. She puts it in her coat pocket. They go in there as part of being polite. He asks, "Okay, can I take your coats?" So he takes their coats. He then swaps the key into Paxton's pocket.
Probably after, he gets the bikes.
Yeah, when they go to the back room and they get their coats again, when they're gonna leave, she notices that it's not my pocket, and Paxton looks and it's in hers. Though that's like a question mark. Okay, he's been
done
messing
something,
around, but why did he put it back in the wrong pocket? So Topher Grace shows up, asks if they're there. They're not, and so they've taken this opportunity to go back up the stairs to the locked door to try and call for help so that he'll hear them.
Yes, and they're trying to get matches.
Yeah, well, after they realize that he's not going to hear them, they're too far deep in the house, and it's
if we start a fire, I'm just like, house. Hope you don't die before I get to fire, but okay.
So they do this whole thing where now they're going to pull over some matches. So they're all very distracted.
They're distracted, and they're up the stairs again. Yeah. So they're kind of away
from the body.
Yes. So they come back down with their matches, and Paxton notices, she goes, the dead lady, she moved. She's in a different position. And Barnes is like, yeah, whatever, match. Trying to get
Which
that going.
Which is interesting that Paxton notices this and Barnes doesn't.
Exactly.
Which gives you little hints that maybe she has a little more going on than what she's leading on, which is important.
And then, is this where our prophetess wakes up?
She classic horror movie thing. Shows up right behind her.
And then, says a vision she had of what is beyond. And at the very end, she goes, "None of this is real."
Yep.
And then Hugh Grant comes down.
And this whole time they've been trying to light a match, and he basically they finally get. It's like not working. They can't, and he just walks up, grabs a match, lights it immediately. Just like,
oh. And then Barnes and Reed go back and forth because Reed's like, "You seen a miracle," and Barnes is like, "We saw a magic trick," and they're going back and forth, and she's about to say because Paxton is behind.
Yeah,
Reed.
She's trying to rotate him
his
around attention
a bit,
so that Paxton's behind him.
Paxton is about to say magic underwear, but before she can get the whole thing out, all of a sudden, he
whips out a box cutter really fast and slashes her across the throat.
Her throat. I actually, that was a huge surprise.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense because, we saw the back and forth, she can't be controlled the same way.
Yeah, she's too smart, or at least he perceives her as being, she's the smart one.
Yes.
I probably can't control her. Also, I think maybe that wasn't his original plan, but after hearing their plan of, we're going to attack him, he almost has no choice there. He has to show...
I think at some point he was always going to kill her. Just
Probably.
Because the key part. Yeah. Whether it was always going to be then or another time, I don't know. But then I don't know about this turn where he tries to convince Paxton that they're in a simulation because of the birth control thing.
So she freaks out and runs away after she kills Barnes. Which again, big shock. I really was expecting. Barnes is the leading lady. She's
R.I.P. Paxton, but no, it's R.I.P. Barnes.
Yep. And it's clearly not something she's going to survive. Clean across the throat.
And then what he does to her arm, it's just
So Paxton runs away, and is freaking out, panicking at the door. But he starts calling up to her to come back down, and no. Don't worry, she'll come back to life. I'll use this to prove it.
Oh, the miracle of the yes.
Yeah, and it's at this point that Paxton sort of gets a hold of herself and repeats something back to her that Barnes told her, which is don't let him just talk. Challenge him. Because
that's why she was challenging him before, because he was trying to convince them to kill themselves so they can come back alive.
Barnes was like, okay, this is how you're going to do it. I was trying to figure out how you would make killing us our idea.
Exactly.
And this said with this miracle thing. But anyway, so this is now then the turn for Paxton, where she's like, okay, challenge him. Now that Barnes is dead and she's all alone, she can't rely on her anymore to be the one who's figuring things out, so she has to. And I get for some people this turn was probably a bit out of left field. It did kind of feel like, again, because this is something that's being written by people, it kind of felt like they just started writing Barnes's lines for Paxton after this point. So I think the only way that you can really accept it is to accept that this really was Paxton the whole time. She's just been hiding behind a wall of this training and indoctrination about this is how you're supposed to act all this time, that she wasn't facing these realities. And now she is forced to because of her situation. So it didn't bother me too much. I don't know what you thought about that. She has a big turn in terms of how she acts from this point
Actually,
on.
It wasn't her. It was his plan. Like, I get the whole thing is control, but it's like where we end up. I was like, I don't.
Yeah. So basically, then he goes and like cuts out. He noticed earlier that she had a scar on her arm, which we knew was the IUD.
Yes, because I have that scar.
Yeah, that birth control thing that goes in your arm.
Oh, she didn't come back to life because she's part
an
of
NPC.
She's part of the simulation. I'm like, the fuck is this Matrix now?
Yeah, so he like hard pivots to this simulation theory.
Yep.
That the world is a simulation, blah, blah, blah.
And both of us were screaming, that's birth control, dude.
Which he then points out.
Which I get him thinking Paxton wouldn't know that, because honestly, most 20-year-old Mormons probably wouldn't know that.
So he sort of gambled there.
Yeah, and he lost because she's like, I think that's
birth control. It basically calls out that I think you're improvising now because something went wrong that you weren't expecting.
Yes.
And it seems, and she basically said, yeah, it seems to have been when the prophet came back to life and told us this isn't real. You tried to spin it as, oh, he's saying that the world isn't real.
Yeah.
But she went off script.
Yes. So pretty much, yeah, she did her whole vision thing. And that one line at the end, pretty sure she went off script at that time.
Yeah. So now you're trying to improvise what that could mean. And so you went to the simulation thing as like a Hail Mary. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting. Like there are several things that happen that, because this whole thing is control, right?
Yes.
And he does do a pretty good job at manipulating the circumstance, but he can't control everything.
Exactly.
There are a couple moments where it slips. One being the prophet going off script, obviously. Mm-hmm. The missionary, the
Paxton.
No, the dude
Topher Grace
comes back.
Yes, that's
which
right.
Sort of catches him off guard too. It was just to give him a pamphlet, but still, it's like there's that. Some of the things that they notice and call him out on, like it does, like if you're paying attention, like it does start to fall apart, and I think that gives Paxton some like to pull off something like this. It almost has to be flawless, and any little thing. Him having to maybe kill her sooner than he wanted to because they were going to attack him. Like those are all moments where he's losing control.
Yes.
And it undermines his whole premise.
Exactly. And then is this where we go into, she kind of unravels what he did, that pretty much he switched out the prophetess. Like she actually died because they checked her pulse. Like she was dead.
Yeah.
So when they went upstairs with the whole commotion of like Topher Grace coming and then trying to get the matches, there must be a door where another lady came in.
Yeah. She basically Ocean's 11 pieces it all together. It's like, okay, when you went to check on the pie, you took our bikes because when you came back, your hair was wet. And then when the distraction of the door caused us to go upstairs, then that's when someone came in on some secret door somewhere, replaced the body with themselves. That's why I saw them moved in a different position, which means that if I can find this door and go down it, there will be a body there if I am right. And so she finds the door. She's
underneath the table, right? Yep. He's like, well, where's the door? And he pushes her down?
No, she goes down.
Oh.
Like, because if I'm right, he's like, if you're right, there will be a body down there. But don't go down there unless you're willing to see the truth.
See the truth.
So she goes down and finds the body. And she's like, I knew it. And then he closes the door on her.
Okay. And then she goes through some freaky ass tunnels.
Spooky tunnels. Probably filled with mold.
Yes, the amount of mold in that house. And this is this room where she comes in, and it's just all these ladies who are kind of, dressed up like our priestess, our prophetess, in these cages, and it's all like water misting on them, and they look like they haven't eaten in a long time and barely surviving. I think I get where they were going at, like with the control, because I'm guessing these are his other victims.
Yeah.
So I guess
he's gotten to stay there.
So Sister Paxton, I guess, is supposed to be like the next one. Man, the thing though, the amount of time it would take to get someone to this level of degradation because of like the control someone has. Like, even if Sister Paxton was kind of who he believed she was, I still don't think she'd been like, guess I'll go in this cage now. Like, it seemed like a big leap.
And here's what I think is the point of this is. I mean, this criticism, which I think is very valid, it's like, yeah, wait, that they would just...
Also, these women in here is another point of him being super misogynist.
Right.
Because ain't no men down here.
Yeah, all women in cage, and then, he does admit, one went off script.
Because
he, like, cuts
he feels like
off.
he can control women.
Yeah.
Yes.
But here's the thing.
Okay. Break it down for me. This was the hard part for me. Break it down.
Because, it was difficult because, like, that doesn't... Like, I get your point, and you've done a decent job at manipulating the situation they're in right now, but not perfect. So you're like, maybe if he had done a perfect job, we'd be more accepting. But we know that it's not perfect. So how could he do all these people? Why do we assume that he is telling the truth? He's lied about everything.
That's true. He
lied about the door being closed. He lied about all of his things. All we know is that he said, they chose this. How would he describe Paxton to his next victim if he had just at this point clubbed her over the head and shoved her in a cage? Because here's the thing, if they chose this, why are they in locked cages? Why do they need to be in cages? Would he then describe Paxton to the next victim as, Paxton chose to be here. This is his interpretation of how smart he is. I got Paxton I got this lady to come down here of her own, because she did go down that hatch of her own. That was her own decision.
And that's how she figured out the key. He always meant for the key to go into her pocket.
Right. He wanted her to be the one.
Yes. Barnes was always going to die.
Of course, she's going to choose this when you give her no choices.
Yes.
His whole thing is, you can leave the house, but that's not true either. You can't.
The illusion of choice, yeah.
It's the illusion of choice. He says there's choice, but there isn't. So then when you are forced to choose the only option available to you, which is to live in captivity, he's, of course, going to spin that as, well, they chose this. Well, of course they chose it because you didn't let them leave. So what I'm thinking in hindsight is that...
manipulation.
Is another manipulation.
Okay. Because I'm just like, the fuck is this?
And now at this point... Obviously, his plan required some cooperation from them because they had to go out, move the bodies around. But they are prisoners here. They've been prisoners for who knows how long. They've been deprived of food. Of course, at this point, after being in captivity for so long,
that I understand.
They are going along with whatever he says because they don't want to die.
I guess right? I'm wondering, like, what he thought the next step was. Like, say she didn't...
Paxton?
She didn't, like, fight back. Like, is she literally supposed to be like, cool, whatever, I'll sit here? And, like, I guess...
I think he knocks her out and throws her in a cage until a year later, deprived of food and water, that she's a shell of her former self.
But he want her to say, I give up, before he knocked her out?
I don't know about that.
Why didn't he just go shabam? Because it seemed like he wanted her to almost
I think he's just full of himself.
That is also the case.
And here's the thing. Maybe his first few victims were more like forceful and direct, and now he's just high off his own, like, off himself. And he's starting to believe his own
I can
mythos.
convince them that to go to this. Yeah. Okay.
Look at all these people I've trapped here. Well, you trapped them because you trapped them in a literal dungeon house that you can't escape from, and bombarded them with annoying Reddit arguments until they submitted out of desperation.
They're just actually pretending to sleep down there, like, please don't say any more Reddit arguments. Don't talk.
Like, is it really so clever that you can manipulate? It's not, none of this is true manipulation. There's some nice parlor tricks.
Yes.
He has some nice arguments, but ultimately he has trapped them all in a locked house that they can't escape from.
Correct.
So after that point, the experiment is flawed.
Yes.
Because at this point, people will say and do anything to stay alive when there is no other alternative. So I think when you look at it that way, like, he truly, now maybe this wasn't the point, in which case, boo. I just don't think the movie presented us with enough of, oh yeah, he is a true mastermind. He's good, but he's not perfect.
I do agree with that, yes.
That I do not think he could have, through pure mind games, trick 6 different people to voluntarily just stay there. Because if that was the case, he wouldn't need all of these very real and physical security measures.
Yes.
None of this would have worked if they could have literally walked out.
Just walk out.
A true, purely mental mind game of I can manipulate you to do whatever I want would have been to not have a locked door, to not have a locked house, to not, to pure logic them into a cage, which he couldn't do, and he knew he couldn't do, so he needed all this other stuff. So really his whole thing breaks down. You realize, oh, he's just an above average intelligent person who's read a lot and knows how to manipulate the system that people like him have already created to trap women, to further trap women. It's like, oh, great.
Okay.
Look at me, I can murder you with a gun. Yeah, anyone can do that. You didn't invent the gun.
Yeah, I guess I was just missing a piece there. You know what I mean?
Sure. And this is all stuff that I'm coming up with right now.
Okay.
Because I am also bullshitting to try and control it.
No!
I've manipulated this entire podcast to this moment.
This really was the long game.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the best read that I can think of for that ending.
I'll take that.
That you just can't. He's an unreliable, not even a narrator. He's just an unreliable person. He's a liar.
I think the whole thing still leaves me a touch unsatisfied.
Yeah.
I guess this is what I was, and maybe it was because I brought some expectations into the movie, but also I feel like the first act and a little bit of the second kind of, I guess it turned for me when they first went through that belief door and they went down and everything. I was hoping this whole thing was more of like, they're going through this labyrinth and it's somehow challenging their actual faith in like Mormonism or God. Like they're answering questions, like really digging deep into why they believe these things. Because I kind of understand Barnes and Paxton, but I still don't understand like why Barnes especially believes, because she's a convert. And we're told her father died a pretty rough death and she lost a kidney to an E. coli outbreak. Is that right? It's like, oh, that's probably why she has birth control, because she's probably afraid to get pregnant if she's lost a kidney. And, because that's why they don't go to Taco Bell anymore. So it's like, okay, I guess I was hoping to get more about these girls and why they believed in Mormonism, why they believe. And we get a little bit with Paxton at the end, but I feel I was hoping this movie would be such a deep dive. Like I was really hoping for the deep dive. And I felt like I was teased that in the beginning. And then I felt like we got atheist Reddit
more
shenanigans.
And I think when you said labyrinth, that's sort of what came to mind for me is, I was expecting that, like from what we saw in the trailer, was truly just like the start of the labyrinth, whether that's physical or a mental, more depth. But in the end, it was just one room.
I know.
Maybe two because of the ending. But like, there wasn't actually that much to it.
Yeah.
But isn't that kind of the point that his arguments seem like they're going to be deeper than they are?
So then for the movie that we got and what they were trying to do, yes, I understand what they're doing. This was the correct route to take. I guess the movie I was hoping for, like,
can't beat those expectations.
It's hard because I'm like, oh, what if he was really good in the beginning and maybe shook one of them a bit, and one of them chose the disbelief door and one chose the belief door, and then we see like their journey going through it. That's kind of what I was thinking it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I guess it's one of those things where you watch it, and when you come to terms with what they were terms of, like, oh, okay,
this is
that's
what the
fine.
movie is. Yes,
but you're still left with, well, now I still want to see this other movie.
I want to see my movie.
Where's my movie? When are they going to make?
Because I do
Heretic 2, Heretic Harder.
Too Fast, Too Heretic. Heretic, Electric Boogaloo.
Yep.
But yeah, so because I do, I feel like, and maybe it's just an overall dissatisfaction I get from most religious movies, because I feel like it's a lot of surface level. Like, I think this is good for people that maybe
because they're too afraid to actually tackle those things.
Yes, I think this is great for people who are maybe in the beginnings of deconstruction or religious and maybe haven't thought. Just there is an audience for this. I guess where I am with my journey, my religious journey, I was hoping to go deep.
It does actually seem like it is kind of catered to those people who might be just starting deconstruction or thinking about it, because it isn't that hostile to religion.
No.
So
especially with the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is very hostile to it, and he does make good, valid points, right?
I need to look up the directors.
It softens
Are they Mormon?
It softens the blow because the main characters never seem to question their faith.
Yes.
And by the end of it, they spin at least some aspects of it, like prayer, in a positive, neutral light.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is good. I
didn't want that
I think
either.
If you went and beat them over the head with religion bad, you wouldn't accept it.
I didn't want that either. I didn't want it to be like clearly pro-religious, anti-religious. I wanted it to be deeply personal. Like, why do these girls believe what they do? Because, let's be honest, Mormonism is a bit of an interesting religion. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, why do you believe this? So
yeah, they never really get into that.
All right. So Paxton goes, fuck off.
Yeah, so
to Mr. Reed.
Basically, he comes up and then she stabs him.
Yeah.
So, which he was not expecting.
Not at all.
So again, losing control. And this is where I was just thinking, this is why you double tap. You don't stab and run away.
Yes!
You stabbed him in the neck. He is disabled. Finish the fucking job.
Oh my goodness. That is...
So as soon
anything else I've taken from movies, it's always make sure they're dead before you leave.
So as soon as that, I was like, oh, okay, so he's not dead.
Yeah.
And he both is and isn't dead. So yes, he comes back. She's trying to escape. I'll run around, and he comes up and he stabs her in a surprise thing. Yeah, which did get me.
And they're in the main room where he killed Barnes.
Yeah. She's back there because she can't find a way out or something, and the only way out is back down the door or something. She thinks her. There's some reason
she gets there.
She gets stabbed. But he's clearly not going to live. He is dying.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay.
He looks pissed too that this girl.
Yeah. But he had enough strength to come back and stab her, I guess. And then she just sits there again as he crawls over to her. It was like, he's still more injured than you. Go take him out.
And she gives her little speech at the end.
Yeah, this also felt a bit out of character. She does a little speech about how they did a study. It's like, oh great, they did a study speech.
They did a study. Let me see the receipts on the study.
Talking about Reddit arguments, but they did a study. But yeah, they did a study. It was about the effects of prayer, and it was conclusive. Prayer doesn't work. It's like, okay, fair. It's not like I'm doubting the results of the study, but a lot of people, and again, this goes back to these sort of Reddit atheist arguments, like to take singular sort of things, and this proves or disproves
Yeah.
everything. Like, okay, one study showed that, prayer.
Guess I'm atheist now.
You're right. This proves it. I'm atheist. Which maybe I am. I don't know. But it's not. Again, it's like things that I might agree with, but just presenting with such a you're being just as arrogant as he is in all these arguments. Like, oh, it's conclusive. Prayer doesn't work. It's like, there's so many variables.
I know.
I don't think you could do that study. Although one person pointed out there was an interesting result of the study. So the group that was prayed for and the group that wasn't had no discernible difference in results. But there was a third group which did have noticeably worse results, which was the group that was being prayed for and knew about it. There's a group that was prayed for, didn't know, not prayed for, didn't know, was being prayed for, and they did know, and they did the worst.
Okay, so don't tell me you're praying for me.
And the theory was that but again, none of this is conclusive.
Oh, yeah,
because it's just one thing.
It's
There's
just
so
one
many
study of like a few people,
variables with how our minds work. But anyway, the theory is that because they knew they were being prayed for, they had an internalized pressure to perform, and they pushed themselves
so like that
too
stress and anxiety.
That stress and anxiety, they pushed themselves too hard through their physical, their PT and stuff, and ended up being worse because they tried to rush it. And I'm better, but they weren't.
Oh, because like if I'm not better, then it doesn't prove it. Yeah, that is a weird like mental.
But ultimately, her point in telling the story about the stupid study is, okay, yeah. Even I, Paxton, don't believe, I guess, that prayer physically works. But it is just a nice thing to where you're thinking about someone other than yourself, which is a very good point. I like that way of looking at prayer. Like, I'm not, saying that there's so many people you see like, oh, if we pray, it's going to happen, or look what our prayer did. It's like, I think even if you are a religious person and believe, that just seems like such a no. I don't think that works even whether you believe or not. Just there's so much I could go into that, but anyway,
and
doesn't
while
matter.
She's saying this whole thing, he's going gargle, with blood coming out, and crawling on the floor.
I thought that was a nice way of looking at prayer. I don't think you needed to go on this. This study was conclusive.
Yeah, that's a nice.
God is dead.
God is dead.
It's like, okay.
And so if she puts her
it also sounded like something Barnes would say more than something Paxton would say.
Yeah. I
think maybe Barnes or him should have brought up the study earlier because it would have made more sense coming from them. Especially
actually, that would have been
Grant
cool.
Would have made sense coming from him. They did this study, right? Your prayer's bunk.
And then while he's crawling on the ground to her, she go, I pray.
She could even say, I knew about that study.
Yeah.
That's not news to me, but this is why I pray, is to think about someone other than myself. And that's a really sweet way of thinking about it. So I like that. But then he stabs her. Or he's going to go stab her.
He's going to go stab her because he'd already stabbed her and she's on the ground and she puts her hands up like she's praying while he's coming closer to her. And then he does this weird thing where he lays his head on her and then he picks it up and he's about to stab her again.
Yeah, I think he's just collecting his strength there since he is bleeding to death.
True. That could be it just made for an interesting visual because her with her prayer hands there and him kind of just laying on her.
Almost like praying for him or something. Anyway, yeah. So then he goes to stab her. And then, whack, he gets hit from somewhere and you see the board with the nails on it drop. She looks up shocked and it's Barnes. Barnes is alive. For a second. And then she dies.
So, was that a miracle?
So then she gets up, she looks at that little diorama thing, the little model of the house, finds an exit, crawls out of it, and has her phone there in the snow. And then at that point, she sees a butterfly lands in her hand. Because we forgot. So earlier, she had said...
wasn't that a part of the simulation type thing?
No, she was talking about earlier about... This is probably when they were back in the first room.
Or the butterfly effect? Something like that? It was in the room. I know it was in...
It was very early. She talked about what do you think happens to you when you die, and she's like, I want to be reborn as the butterfly. It was just one of her, sort of stupid, sweet things that she says. It was like, I don't come back as the butterfly, so I'd land. If I would go to the people I love and land right on their hand, so they knew it was me. Not buzzing around their head, land right on their hand. So she's the butterfly, land right in her hand.
Yeah.
So I guess is that Barnes,
But then it
cuts, and you see there is no butterfly. So what does all this mean? And of course, this is where all the Reddit discussions are, is ending explained. So did Barnes not come back? Was she dead? Because they also talk about, when you're dead, and because he was trying to use these near-death experiences like, see, they saw nothing, or they saw emptiness. Heaven's not real. And Barnes is like, well, I went through one of those.
Oh, that's how we found out about her missing kidney, because she also died.
Because I also had a near-death experience. People just hallucinate things as they're dying. So that doesn't prove anything, blah, blah, blah. So is this, with that as the setup, Chekhov's near-death experience, is everything after, is Barnes getting up and killing him?
Was that all like...
Is that and everything after that all concoctions of her mind as she lays there dying and he really did kill her? So is she dead? Or...
Was that Barnes?
Was the butterfly Barnes? Was that just something... Or did he die, but then she dies in the snow? Ugh, and that's her mind.
That actually probably really depressing. I don't know.
And here's the thing. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't know if it makes...
Yeah.
I don't know if that matters.
This past week, I haven't been like, so they're going.
Because it doesn't matter to the point of the story.
Yeah, the story about control.
I don't see how that... It feels like a twist put on the end because twists are compelling and lead to online discussions.
Yeah, gotta get those.
I don't see how
discussions going.
Now, maybe I'm wrong and I'm missing something, but I personally don't see what it adds to the discussion on themes and messages, whether this fake out death is right or not. Maybe in her belief in miracle. But here's the thing. But it doesn't even have to be a miracle. Okay, she was stabbed, she was bleeding out. But I mean, shit happens. People, maybe your body, maybe she was all tuckered out. She needed a minute to rest. And she was just sitting there. Maybe she's been dying this whole time, but not dead. And when he came back and she saw, Paxton was in trouble, she mustered up this last adrenaline surge.
True. I have no idea how long it takes to die from bleeding out. Yeah. I have no idea.
He cut up her arm pretty good. I mean, it seems like she's dead, but we never had confirmation. So to me, I don't think you even need a miracle to explain it.
Yeah.
Especially in a movie. And that's the other thing. This is a movie. And you can make people do anything.
Yeah. I don't...
Yeah.
It's hard.
So I didn't see really what it added, except to make me frustrated. I just wanted Paxton to have a happy ending at that point. She's been through so much.
Let the poor girl live. So that's my ending. She gets out. Yeah. Topher Grace finds her. She's like... No, what? I don't know about this Mormonism thing. I think I need to go find myself.
I want to go watch some pornography.
Pornographer. So yeah.
So I think
it was good. It just didn't reach the heights I was hoping.
Yeah.
That's all. I did like it. I honestly, compared to a lot of the horror movies I've seen this year, not too shabby. It's interesting because I feel like it has a similar problem where the setup's really good. The first half is strong, and then it goes kind of goes down with the second. I feel like this was better because they were a little bit more focused on the themes. I just faltered here and there. It wasn't like other movies where it's like a cliff jump off the second half.
Yeah,
it's not like that. It's more of... When I realized what we were getting, I'm like, okay, that's fine. It felt a bit more mainstream, the approach.
That does seem like where A24 is trying to go.
Yes. And I guess the first half, I felt like we were going to get something a little bit more unique. And because it seemed a little bit more mainstream horror elements in that second half, maybe that's why I was a little disappointed. I don't know. It was pretty good. The performances are top notch. Go to see Hugh Grant, honestly. Any more thoughts?
I think that's it. Oh, this is a really unimportant detail.
Oh, boy.
We're talking about unimportant details that don't matter. What was with the spiders? So when they first started listening in that tube, there's a lot of and the spider, these white tarantula-looking spiders come out, And then later when the person's dead, you see a spider coming down to them. What was the point of that?
His house was infested.
Just seems so specific.
You're right.
So just to make you, is it a red herring? I don't know. Then they never came up. No one mentioned them. But they're very obviously...
Poor atmosphere. Poor atmosphere.
Yeah, that's it. Just the spooters.
All right. So before we leave, just want to talk a bit about the scheduling. We're a bit late on this.
Schedule's fucked.
The sickness has definitely derailed us, but also we were planning on covering Dune.
Mm-hmm. And apparently we are the only people in the world who think that this new show
we watched the
sucks.
first episode. It was rough.
I thought it was really bad.
It was so rough. I'm still going to watch because towards the end of the episode, there was a couple of things that interest me. But honestly, I don't know if I will even get through these 6 episodes.
Yeah.
And also the thought of talking about them every week, it would just be us angry ranting, I feel like. Which I know some people, that's their bread and butter on YouTube and podcasting, but it's not for me. Sometimes I like rants, but I don't like knowing like I'm going into a rant. I like a rant when I just...
for 6 episodes.
If it was just one episode, that's fine.
We'll keep up on and see if it makes a big turn, but...
I think the only thing we might do is if we do make it to the end of the 6 episodes, we might do like
a recap
of the whole season. But with that said, because we're not covering it week to week, we decided with sickness, holiday, shenanigans, all of that, we're just going to take a little hiatus till probably January 1st. I'm excited for Nosferatu's coming out. We're definitely going to do that. And then season 3 of The Traitors is coming out. We are definitely covering The Traitors because the winter's horrible. This January specifically is going to be horrible, and I need some happiness in my life. Hey, so we're going to cover that because we binge watched the first 2 seasons. I love it. I think it's a great time. The cast, some of the members are stellar. So yeah, that's how the future plans. So the next time you'll hear from us probably towards the end of December, maybe like very early January. But yeah, we will talk to you then. Bye.
Bye.